Yes. Do you know that there is no interpretation of the Veda proper? There is only Niruktam of Yaska with etymology a little bit here and there. And there is Shankara's interpretation, but not of Samhitas, but Upanishads. There is Sayanacharya. It's the only interpretation which is given to the Vedas, but again in the ritualistic manner. And everyone in the Western Indology follows Sayana's interpretation. So that's why we have such poor translations of the Veda, because they don't see in Vedas nothing but ritual. And Vedas are much more than ritual. It's a book of knowledge. Um, all right. So what Sri Aurobindo says on the Veda, let me increase it for you. I make it like this. Sri Aurobindo on the Veda. Veda is the earliest gospel we have of man's immortality. Notice this word immortality. It's very different from usage in the later literature. The central conception of the Veda is the conquest of the truth out of the darkness of ignorance, and by the conquest of the truth, the conquest also of immortality. So the truth is a kind of a corridor or the gateway to immortality. That's why we need the truth. Veda is perfect and beautiful in its coherence and its unity. It's an important statement because by the Western scholars and by Indian scholars, by the way, it is said that, we don't know what is Veda. It's like jumbo, mumbo, here and there. We can't interpret. We do not know what they mean. We do not know what they say. Maybe it's a spoiled text, may corrupt it over time. And everybody of Western scholars tries to amend, to repair the text and suggest different changes and do even more harm to it. Sri Aurobindo, when we discover the keys of the Veda, we will read it totally different. It will be totally meaningful to us, luminous, coherent, beautiful, perfect. It's a perfect text. It's difficult to believe until you apply those keys, but once you start applying and see deeper etymological meaning, you will immediately appreciate the depth of this knowledge. So, Vedic vision. What was this Vedic vision about?
Vladimir, I have a question in the first slide. May I please ask?
Yes, for any time.
What is the meaning of it is by the conquest of the truth, the conquest also of immortality? What is the meaning of conquest of immortality?
Yeah, so beautiful. Yes, there is no more kind of wishy-washy. There's kind of like immortality comes to us. You have to conquer it. You have to fight for it. You have to put all your energy into it. And this is the vision of the Veda. The rishis are always fighting, conquering, moving forward. It is described as the journey or the battle with the forces of darkness which are withholding from us our treasures. Yeah? You have to meet with them, you have to face them, you have to have courage. It's a very proactive position which is found only in the Vedas. Later in the Advaitic approach, starting it's something else. There is no more such conquest. There is no more emphasis on conquering anything anymore. It's more you are dealing with yourself, as it were. You are becoming tapasvin, but tapasvins are fighters. Try to fight your desires, try to fight your thoughts and make them, disappear. Try to keep your mind free from thinking. It's an incredible fight. Yeah? So, and
Wonderful.
and
Mm.
this yeah, this jayate, svargam jayate, or satyameva jayate, you have it in your slogan. Truth alone conquers, literally prevails. So prevailing, conquering. Okay, So if we start from the beginning, I will have to do this because it is more interesting. So the Vedic vision, I have this kind of, so the beginning. What was the beginning? And Shatapatha Brahmana says, I will use texts from here and there, from Brahmanas and Samhitas. Shatapatha Brahmana says, at the beginning was the self. Oops, wait a minute. At the beginning was the self. Atman was at the beginning. He was alone. That's why I put the sun like a lone self. There is nothing else but that shining being. He looked around and didn't find anybody else except himself. So he did look around. It's interesting. Wherever he looked, there was him. Here I am, I am everywhere. Oh, it's only me everywhere. And there is nobody else. What a surprise. But the way that he looked around for someone already tells us that there was a thought or there was an expectation in him to meet somebody else, which is interesting, yeah, just from psychological point of view. Though he is alone, he was looking for someone else. He said, I am, but there was no other name to say before he was alone. And then he was not happy. He wanted another. I made it shorter than it is. In the text, there's something more after that, that he became afraid, the text says. He became afraid, and therefore the one who is alone is always afraid, Shatapatha Brahmana says. But then he thought, whom I'm afraid of? If I alone am, then fear vanished. And Shatapatha Brahmana says, fear always comes from another. Now, this is the best definition, psychological definition of fear you can find anywhere. I would never see it better. Fear always comes from another, from otherness of self. What is fear in Sanskrit is bhayam. Yeah, you know bhayam word. And this bhayam is the actually from root bhi, to shrink. Shrinking comes when we recognize that there is not me. I am here, but there it is somebody else. So I shrink back to myself. So the one who alone is afraid because there is only him and nobody else. Everything is alien to him. Yes, it's not him. And the one who recognizes otherness of self is afraid and shrinking back. So this is, and then he was not happy. After this kind of movement back and forth with his fear, with shrinking and expanding, he was not happy because there was nobody else. And he wanted another. Sadvitiyam aichat. He wanted the second, not that he alone is. So this is the one vision of the beginning of creation. So the one consciousness being, which is alone, wanted to be many. And there is another statement by the Upanishads and the Vedas, Bahusyam, may I be many. Why did he want to be many? We will look into it. Why he wasn't happy to be alone. It was so good for him. I would prefer to stay alone, but he wanted many. So here that there are texts of where it is taken from. I will send you the the presentation so you look into it. What I want to mention here in this course that I was puzzled for many years, for decades actually, about these statements in the Upanishads. For example, this from Taittiriya, so kamayata, and he desired, bahusyam, may I be many, prajayeti, may I procreate many, become many. be born as many. Satapo tapyata, and he flamed in tapas, satapas taptva, and having flamed in tapas, idam sarvam asrijata. He cast all this out of himself. Yadidam kimcha, whatever exists. Tatsrishtva, having cast all that, tade eva nupravishat, he entered it. Having cast it out of himself, he entered it. Tad anupravishya, and having entered that, sachatya cha bhavatu, niruktam cha, and so on. So what is interesting that there are two stages. One is he alone, then he casts something out of himself, and then he penetrates it. I never could understand this, and it is everywhere. In all Vedic texts, there are two stages. He's casting out of himself. Where out of himself? There is no out. He alone everywhere is him. But somehow out of himself he cast something into which he entered. Just think for a second. As a person, as a creator, you alone are, for example. And then how would you create another? If you cannot create another if you are everywhere. You are omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, and there is nobody else. How can you create another other than you? It's just a big, big puzzle.
So the theory of the cosmic egg in Hiranyagarbha, that this is the same concept.
No,
Uh,
it's not the
no.
same. I'm starting even from before Hiranyagarbha was made. It's the reason why this creation came into existence, why this Hiranyagarbha appeared in first place. So he wanted to be many. And Sri Aurobindo speaks on it in very beautiful language. He says, why should Brahman, ask Sri Aurobindo, who is perfect, absolute, needing nothing, desiring nothing, at all throw out, and this is casting out, force of consciousness to create in itself these worlds of forms? Why? If then being free to move or retain eternally still, to throw itself into forms or retain the potentiality of form in itself, it indulges its power of movement and formation, it can be only for one reason, for delight. There cannot be any other reason. Would you agree with this? Why? To create. For omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent being, some forms. It's really just joyful. It's full of delight. And Mother speaks
So,
about this. Yeah, Elinko.
isn't that similar thing like why does a mother give birth? Like it's painful, it's a struggle, and still it's for the
Absolutely.
delight.
Yes, yes, it is. It is reflected in all the nature. You will see it everywhere. We go through ordeals because we are looking for what? We are looking for delight. The delight is the only reason why we are here. We are looking for more and more delight. And what is delight? We will come to it. Delight is the conscious being. When we are totally conscious in our existence, it is a fullness of delight. The more you are conscious of yourself, the more delight you have. But of your true self, of your all selves. There are many selves in us. There's physical self, vital self, mental self, our supramental self, and our innermost being. So to become aware of all how they interact creates a huge number or a huge power of delight, let us say. Mother speaks on it, and I want to mention this in this regard, that she speaks about that yeah, somebody is saying something, no? Mother speaks on it in a very interesting way. It would be interesting for you to know that she says that he has his delight, his ananda of identity. Identity, ananda is within him. Ananda is a part of his uh, being alone. He is totally in bliss, but it is the bliss of identity. It is not bliss of unity. And he wanted to experience an additional ananda, additional through unity, when he can unite with himself, that he can interact with himself as another. That's why he wanted another. He wanted to have many of himself to interact and create that delight of unity. That is the reason of creation. It makes totally sense, most probably for women, for mothers, yeah, who have children. And fathers may be a little bit puzzled by all this, but they would like to stay alone. So, the Supreme, says the mother, decided to exteriorize himself, again casting out, exteriorizing, objectivize himself in order to have the joy of knowing himself in detail, to be able to see himself. He never saw himself. He was never seeing himself, because seeing is an objective function. You have to objectively see your own in the mirror. You in the mirror, your body, you see yourself in other beings. You see other beings and you do not know that they are you, but it is what he wanted. He wanted to be objectivized and to know, to have a joy of knowing himself in detail. And that means that infinite existence was spelled out in details. So every element of his infinite existence was brought into this manifestation. And if you look carefully into the world, if you look into how our material world is organized, you will see that we do not have same fingerprints. We do not have same leaves on the tree. You will not find two same leaves, two pebbles on the shore, you will not find the same. They will be similar, but not the same. Everything is spelt with infinite variety, and that is the proof of his infinity. So he wanted to see every pebble on the shore as different, every leaf on the tree as different, every human being, every creature is different, every star, every comet, every planet is different. And this is the beauty of his infinite manifestation, to know himself in detail and to be able to see himself. The first thing in himself which he exteriorized was the knowledge of the world and the power to create it. This knowledge consciousness, chittapas, and force began its work. And in the supreme will, there was a plan. And the first principle of this plan was the expression of both the essential joy and the essential freedom, which seemed to be the most interesting feature of this creation. So the most interesting feature of this creation, it is two demands which we always have, all creatures have: the right for essential joy and the essential freedom. Notice all our laws, all our social orders, organization is all about these two things: essential joy and essential freedom. I have a right to be what I am, and I have a right for joy of my existence. The rest does not matter. The rest just plays kind of additional kind of, it's an additional material for providing these major needs, features of this creation.
So, what is the meaning of freedom over here? Like essential freedom, what does that mean?
Yeah, what does it really mean, freedom? It is he who alone is, he is free. Yes, he is essentially free because there is nobody else. So he gave this freedom to every being, Bahusyam may be many, and every being has essential freedom of being. That's why it became many, because of that freedom. If that freedom would not be there, multitude creation would not come into existence. Just think about it. It's really a very deep philosophical question. What is freedom?
That's the reason might be when we try to copy other and when we layer up our individuality or authenticity, the problem arises
Yes,
psychologically.
yes. And we always try to define ourselves. We always try to figure out who we are. Yes. And that is because we are given this freedom to know, to discover ourselves and the world. Sri Aurobindo emphasizes in his human cycle the necessity of individualistic age, which took place in the West. And he says India is still sleeping in slumber of that conventional age. Yeah? It didn't really wake up yet to the individualistic age. In the West, you can see everybody is an individual, whatever it is. It may be an undeveloped person totally, but he is already an individual. He takes the gun and goes to shoot someone.
Also, I'm thinking, Vladimir, then if this is what the whole purpose of everything is, then maybe this is why we all feel unhappy or miserable or suffocated if we are missing joy or if we are missing freedom. Because essentially we are actually just craving that, whether it is from your routine or your job, your relations or whatever. We
Absolutely.
want freedom in everything. And whenever we are missing one of them, we feel like suffocated or imbalanced, or whatever is happening in the world, it is because of the lack of these two, right?
Yes,
That's the reverse meaning
absolutely.
of that, right?
Absolutely. You're so right. If you start meditating on it, you will see that our fight is about these two. There is nothing else. We don't want anything else. If I have a joyful relations, I am, but I have to be free also. But the moment these joyful relations take my freedom away, it becomes a cage and I suffocate. Or I am free, but I don't have joyful relations. What happens then? Then I'm falling back into myself, looking for some joyful relations with myself. I become a meditator, yogi, I become a philosopher. As Socrates says, if your wife will be good, you will be happy. That means essential joy will be realized. But if she will be bad, you will become a philosopher. That means you will find that essential joy within you. so so it's either or, but we are looking for that essential joy, either outside or inside. He wanted it to be everywhere. He wanted that essential joy to dominate our relations. And that is additional ananda, additional bliss he was looking for. Does it
Uh,
make sense?
so, if he had the power to create and if he had the knowledge, then why did he not create in such a way that there would always be joy and freedom?
To become many him is a process. First of all, it's a very, very important question what you put, but we will answer in this presentation why. Why did he have to go through all that ordeal of denying himself, in denying his essential joy, going through that pain and unconsciousness and suffering and everything else, and why the world is not happy totally, why we are suffering still here, if he wanted essential joy to lead the world. But we have to arrive at it, and here we will have the concept of evolution of consciousness. It makes sense, but how could he create another? Now this is the question. How could he exteriorize himself if he is everywhere? I go there, there I am, there I am. I am everywhere. There is no border where I am not. So I'm going everywhere and infinitely I alone am. So how to create another? What is necessary to create, to be another? What do you think? What are your thoughts? How would you do it? How would you create another if you alone are?
Detach from something or a
Absolutely.
spark.
Detach from yourself. How can you detach from yourself if you are everywhere? How would you do it? You need something else. It's not enough. You need
You
some,
create some substance, like some matter,
you need
because
matter.
everywhere was matterless, perhaps. So the other would be something which is matter.
Okay, matter is objectivized. Yes, something objectivized being of himself that you can see yourself in the mirror. You see yourself also as a material being. You can see, you can touch your matter. Yeah.
So
So
Shakti,
this is objective viewing. Yeah. Mm.
is it energy, the Shakti?
The Shakti is doing this. You see, this is consciousness, force, knowledge, consciousness. It is and force is chit tapas. She is already projecting him. But how to project that he will become another, many? How to make many out of one? And here the Veda has the suggestion. The first creation, the eternal night. This is fundamental. If we understand what night is about, then we would really understand how he came into being as many. Night, says the Veda, was born out of the shining truth of the supreme power. So the night came into existence out of the shining power of the Supreme. So in the Bible, we say that God says, let it be light. In the Veda, God says, let it be night, because he is light. He wants to have a denial of himself. He doesn't want to be light as if he is not. Yeah? Hmm. So from the night, the waters of the inconscient came into being. And from the waters of the inconscient, the time was born, the creator of all that moves. It's very charged with meaning. One has to meditate on this. This is from the Rig Veda, the nearly the last hymn of the Rig Veda. So this inconscient, we are coming to this where he is not conscious of himself. He lost his awareness of himself. Out of himself, he cast a luminous shadow. All these worlds, from the superconscient to the inconscient, all the grades of light until the light totally disappears. Gradually denying himself, withdrawing his supreme knowledge or awareness from his supreme power, he withdraws the knowledge, the knowing of himself from his power, from his being, becoming unaware of these worlds as himself. Sri Aurobindo has a beautiful lines in Savitri. In the enigma of the darkened vasts, in the passion of self-loss of the infinite, a contradiction founds the base of life. The eternal, the divine reality has faced itself with its own contraries. Being became the void, and conscious force nescience, and a walk of a blind energy, and ecstasy, that delight, took the figure of world pain. Notice that among these, energy is the only one which didn't disappear. It became only blind energy. It became energy unaware of its supreme origin. Everything else has changed. So we can say in this way that what is actually suffering? Suffering is a delight or bliss unaware of its supreme origin. let us look at how Mother speaks. Mother speaks to the children of the ashram in this way. She gives them a story, a fairy tale. She says that this is the supreme being. You see the picture, the one who alone is, yes, who looked around. So the consciousness force emanated out of him four great emanations. First was consciousness in light, then was bliss, then was truth and life, eternal life, existence. We can say life is sat, consciousness in light, chit, chit tapas, yeah? Bliss is bliss, ananda, and truth is what Sri Aurobindo calls supermind or vijnana. These four emanations were emanated out of the Supreme and were given an order by the mother who is the power of the Supreme, to create the world. And she says that they started to move, but they started to move forgetting of their common origin of the Supreme. Every one of them felt that they are the Supreme, and that essential freedom was within them, an essential delight. And they moved at will as they wanted, and gradually they fell into their opposites. So the consciousness in light fell into the darkness. This is the darkness symbol. The bliss turned into suffering. The truth turned into falsehood. And the life, eternal life, turned into death. So this is the first creation, first four emanations. Mother speaks about them as four asuras. These are the asuras which turned into darkness, suffering, falsehood, and death. By the way, death is leading all of them, you could see, because death is the eternal living, eternal infinite and eternal existence, immortality, which turned into, for the first time, he could die. He could be unconscious. He could be suffering. He could be false, not true anymore. Now, this is the ground of the night. So the supreme emanations, here they are, turned into their opposites. So once that turned into the opposites, the Divine Mother, as Aditi, as Mother speaks in her story, turned to the Supreme and said, look what happened. They turned into total darkness and forgot about everything, and they are no more there. So what shall we do? And he tells her, it's a story, fairy tale, but still it's very significant. You find the greater force than they are and precipitate, plunge into the darkness of their fallen state and bring them back to their awareness, to their supreme awareness, to their origin. So Mother looked for that force within the Supreme and found it. It was the force of love. That force was daring to plunge into the darkness, into total forgetfulness, into total suffering, into total falsehood and death, and started from there its journey up, bringing them back to their self-awareness, to redeem them, to make them more and more conscious of their origin. When the first involution took place, that is, first involution, fallen beings, says the Veda, and the light was turned into the darkness, creation became as if unsteady. It could not sustain itself. Shithilam iva, adhruvam iva, says the Veda. It was not steady, it was shaky, it wasn't there. So the Supreme Self had to enter and to support it from within. It was a need to come down and to allow that being not to fall into oblivion, not to disappear, but to allow it to be and to come back to its self-awareness. So that is the plunge. That is what he cast out of himself and then entered it, penetrated it with himself. With his luminous self, he penetrated a total darkness. and started his journey to build the many. When he entered as the Veda, he says, himself by himself, Atmanatmanam abhisam vivesha. He entered by himself into himself. The creation became steady. If you look at our constitution, we can see that there is in us a soul which is conscious of the divine. And there are in us parts which are less and less and less conscious of the divine presence. Our body is much less conscious of its presence. Our vital is more conscious than the body. Our mental is more conscious than the vital and body. And our higher realms of spiritual perception are more conscious. And our soul is absolutely representing the divine. We have all the grades. We are constituted of two beings, of the first emanations who gave us the body, and of the second emanations which gave us the soul. We are double creation. We are created in two stages. I know maybe it's too much to take, but it is very, very structured. When all was plunged in the negating void, non-being's night could never have been saved if being had not plunged into the dark. It's from Savitri. Now look at this statement. Non-being's night could never have been saved. Why should night be saved? And how it can be saved? In what way? In two ways. Saved as it is, because it would fall into oblivion and would not be, as it is death. Yes, there is no awareness of himself. There is only energy, blind energy there, which is not aware of itself. It has no way out. It is fallen and has no way out. It cannot come back to its self-awareness. So if he would not enter into it, it would not be saved in that form and in the sense of evolutionary coming back to its own self-awareness in two senses. Yes, Ashish.
So if there is no bad, there is no good. So to keep good, the bad has to exist.
Let us
Am I
say like this. Yes. It's our mind doing this. Yes, because our mind learned that good and bad, dark and light. Yes, we understand light because of dark. Yes, it is already on the journey. Yes, that's absolutely true. We would not see. And what is this night playing the role is it is separating light from light, like stars. We see the stars, like prickly heats. They are everywhere. they are the holes into the beyond. They bring the light, which is not one. He was one light. Now we have shadows, shades, separating me from you, from other beings. These gaps are everywhere. Now I can focus on one part of his infinite existence, which is me, and develop it to the extent that I become him. I can grow into the supreme awareness as an individual. I can become individual supreme if I want. It's amazing if you think how many was created through the night. And in the Vedic rishis worship night, they invoke night. Havayami Agnim Prathamam Suastaye. I've called to Agni first for well-being. Havayami Mitra Varuna Yahavase. I call to Mitra and Varuna, to the infinite being and consciousness for growth. Havayami Ratrim Jagato Niveshanim. I invoke night, who introduces all the beings into manifestation. She's the one who brings us in. It's our home. It's the space in which we will interact. That's what how Vedic rishis see the night. She is not an enemy. She is the worker. She is the twin sister of the dawn. They are doing the same work, and they are changing, and they're constantly helping us, these beings who were introduced, to evolve to the higher consciousness. Two mothers, the night and the light. So, in the mother's story, in order to repair the fall of the first emanations, the Supreme Mother Aditi delegated out of herself the force of love, which has plunged into the darkness of the first creation. In the Vedas, it is Agni, the divine will, the first avatar, who lay down and hid himself within the darkness, the immortal among mortals. It is because of his presence that everyone is evolving, seeking after the higher knowledge of the Supreme. Because that Agni pushes us forward within ourselves, within our darkness. There is the truth, which is seeking the truth through our darkness. And our darkness is being illumined and illumined more and more in evolutionary process. We get a better body, better capacity. We evolve from primitive organisms to these complex organisms, which can reflect and manifest the spirit outside, not within. It's an amazing project of the creation, if you think of it. So we are, our souls are the sparks of this fire. We are the sparks which are coming from Agni. Agni is our father. It's a universal force which is giving all these sparks as our souls, and we evolve and we grow. And these sparks become the flames, and the flames become the supreme being. So this is the first avatar, picture of the first avatar by Huta. Mother made a sketch. When you go deep into the subconscious and inconscient darkness where there is nothing anymore visible, it's a deep, deep, dense darkness, thick, like in the Veda it is described as an infinite rock. It's very hard, very dense. Sri Aurobindo speaks that in his yoga he was digging into that rock, inconscient rock, into that Maya, as he says, until he broke through. Yeah? And that is the secret of the Veda. But at the bottom of that rock, there is a first avatar sleeping. And because that first avatar, that which entered into the darkness, plunged into the darkness, is there, these emanations of truth through darkness pushes it forward to evolve towards light. And Mother says when she entered down deep and met this being, it was with closed eyes there. But when Mother looked at it, because it is not he or she, it opened its eyes for the first time. It was quite an impressive realization of. So there is some awareness which has to grow from within. This is the secret of the Veda. Within the deepest darkness, there is a supreme light. Otherwise, this night could not have been saved. It would not exist. It is not, and it is. It is because he is there.
So this avatar is it psychic being? What is it
Yes, a
like?
psychic being is, we are the sparks, the psychic being of that avatar. Absolutely. And there is another word, psychic being. Sri Aurobindo is using this word for antar-atman, for the projection of the unborn self. Atman, Jivatman, is projecting itself into antar-atman, inner self. It is our psychic being, the soul. Angushthamatra Purusha, yes, that who is Hridi Guhayam, who is in the cave of the heart, hidden within, the flame within the heart.
So, Vladimir, does it mean that because of the fall and the plunge, and then because of the presence of this, this avatar, this love, this deep inside? So, inside is this light, and outside is the light, and between these two light is one being, which is like moving through darkness, trying to remove darkness, and because there is a light within, there is an inside knowing that light is possible. Is
Right.
am I getting?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is absolutely that. It's knowing, because you see in the Vedic tradition you can see that the asuras and devas. Yeah, so devas is the second creation. Asuras is the first creation. They are the elder brothers of the gods. Asuras in the Veda. Why elder? Because they belong to the first creation. Now, when the asuras appeared, these fallen emanations, yes, they couldn't sacrifice, they couldn't seek for light or give themselves. They didn't know how to do it. They had an essential freedom and seeking for joy, and it led them to fall. But they didn't know how to get out from that state. So the devas are to be created, or the light, or the divine, yeah, which entered the first avatar. I will speak on it more because there are two stories, but I don't want to confuse now. This is an important point, that devas are not the same as psychic being, but in our vision, yes, they are coming to the second creation. And they are here for one reason: to bring these fallen emanations back to their self-awareness, to redeem them. And that path creates all the shades from the total darkness to the total light. And all these gradation, all the hues are our levels of being in consciousness, one by one. And these levels, we are growing. It's like a ladder, like an evolutionary ladder, which we are climbing up. Now, my body was million billion years back some kind of worm or some kind of amoeba. Just look at amoeba, this monocellular organism. It is there, and it is already trying to do something. It tries to see, to hear, it tries to act, it tries to push, it tries to move. There are no yet limbs to move. There is no head, there are no eyes, but it is consciousness is already there, and it wants to see, to act, to interact. It wants, but it has no yet body. So it starts building body from that darkness, step by step, until it is built in such a way that now we can sit in different planet points, even from starting from Philippines till US over India. Can you imagine? We are covering the whole planet, and we understand each other, and we are talking about subjects which are far beyond physical world. How come we evolved so much in our bodies that our bodies support our consciousness now? The complexity of it, incredible to think. So evolution, a soul of the divine is here slowly awaking out of its involution and concealment in the material inconscience. This is what evolution is about. Slow awaking out. He sleeps in the atom and the burning star. He sleeps in man and God and beast and stone. Because he is there, the inconscient does its work. Because he is there, the world forgets to die. The world had to die long ago because it is not. It is totally fallen into the darkness, but it forgets to die and goes on living because he is there. And because of that, the night, the inconscient, can do its work, can continue to separate us and to shape our individual beings and allow our individual beings to grow and evolve separately, as it were, into the higher and supreme consciousness. He is everywhere, and because of that, everything has its own identity. Sri Aurobindo speaks about terrestrial evolution. This terrestrial evolutionary working of nature has a double process, and here we come, two creations. There is an outward visible process of physical evolution with birth as its machinery, for each evolved form of body housing its own evolved power of consciousness, is maintained and kept in continuity by heredity. So that's why we have children, children have children, children have children. We must pass. That's why it was so important to have children for the kings, to pass that particular genome, that kind of correction within genome which you made in your life, which your parents made in their life. You have to pass it forward, because that is the code by which the bodies in the future will be created. The demands of the soul are kind of coded there in genome, and that evolution of the body is to go on and create better and better instruments. But there is at the same time an invisible process of soul evolution with rebirth into ascending grades of form and consciousness as its machinery. At the same time, the soul comes, plunges into gets the body, the child is born, evolves, body evolves, and the soul evolves. Soul is growing here in its awareness, in its uh, interaction with the instruments of knowledge, with the body, with the vital, with the mental realms. It learns from them how to be here, because the soul is immortal being, how to be in time and space, how to maintain its own being here. So we have, as if, like, you see, we have the line, for example, if we look at the linear way of evolution, the first half is what we call Darwinian evolution. Yeah? Species are evolving one by one, changing in time. But it's not envisioned that there is a soul which is causing that evolution forward, pushing this species to evolve for better form. So every time we come here, we create children, we learn from have our experiences, passing it through our genome to our offspring. Our children have children, 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 so that all lineage comes with many children and grandchildren. And then we left, and then we come again over some period of time, and we take another body which already evolved, because the first part of this double process took place. So we invest in time, we invest into our future body by having children. And it will be more evolved forms, more evolved instruments than we have today. This is how it is envisioned, how it is made in time. I'm coming to the end of our time. So if you have some questions, please, it's just would be nice maybe to stop here, and we will start from there next time. I had to bring this to your awareness, because this is the most important part. Once it is settled, Vedas become a very different book.
Vladimir, if you can just once more repeat briefly about why did they fall, like the truth to lies and bliss to misery. Why would they fall?
Yes, what are these? What is truth? Or what is falsehood? Falsehood is truth which is not aware of its supreme origin. Just think about it. What is lie? Lie is actually the truth, unaware of its supreme origin, of its supreme consciousness. Doesn't know the truth. The truth which doesn't know the truth is lie. The
No,
death is
I this.
life.
Why did they have to fall? I
Ah,
understand.
yeah, Mother says because they were given this essential freedom to create, every one of them. And they created as if they were alone, as if they were supreme. They didn't see, they lost the contact with the supreme, as it were. They were so engaged that slowly, gradually, they forgot. They thought that they are the supreme.
It's like we all forget. We just get a degree and a job and raise our children
Right.
and a car. We forget.
Yeah.
Same way they do that. Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you're on.
Then,
Yes, go ahead.
then Supreme create them. So when Supreme created them, then the division happened, right?
Yes, these emanations had to create the world. They had to make it outside, as it were, for him, or create for him the capacity, because these are his existence, his consciousness and force, his delight, and his truth. It is his, yeah, his powers. So they did this work, you know. They kind of spelled him out in all possible gradations, from the supreme light to the supreme darkness, and that's where they got stuck. They couldn't get out of there, and there was a necessity of the second creation. That's why our complexity is so interesting, that on the surface I'm not conscious of my being, but inside I'm conscious of myself. In the soul, I'm conscious of the divine, but outside, I'm not conscious of the divine. So I have two components within myself, and two of them have to develop, two of them have to evolve. My instruments of knowledge, my body has to evolve, and my soul is to evolve for that body to fit, for that new body in the future. So we are constantly evolving in this double process. It's amazing. Yeah, I know. For me, it was just, they changed my life, truly speaking. Now, when we read the Vedas, we will see it implied, presumed everywhere. Nearly in every hymn, in every statement, you will see this presumption. What is to happen? We have to bring this unconscious being back to its consciousness, this fallen being back to its origin. And that is the sacrifice. The sacrifice is a constant calling for higher forces of consciousness to come down and to help this fallen being to rise and to change.
So,
Great.
Vladimir, is there a timeline like the Supreme created everything in its delight and tried to understand itself through its various expressions? And then, so is there a timeline Supreme has for us to kind of.
Time appeared only after the inconscient was created. Inconscient is the father of time. So there was no time till that time.
So if the Supreme wanted to create and to divide, then why should our goal be to merge with the Supreme, to develop that connection, the ultimate realization? That's something
Very
that's
nice
a question.
question. Thank you. Because this is a profound question. He doesn't want us to merge with him and disappear. He wants us to stay supreme individuals. He wants to be many, many. It's unimaginable for our mind, for any mind, to be many supreme. And can you imagine? Every individual is potentially him, the supreme, but not merged and becoming indifferent to all the others, and but uniquely manifested in a unique way. It's like Sri Aurobindo describes it as like the drop of honey is testing all other drops of honey, and all the other drops of honey test the honey, taste the honey. So you have a multiple delight, multiplied in infinity. From every source or from every individual, there is a supreme interaction with the rest. This is what he wanted. He didn't want us to disappear again into one.
So we are being distracted and digressed into aspiring to merge instead of actually just self actualizing.
Absolutely. And this is a wrong idea. Yes. Actually, it's not wrong idea. It's to find the source, to find the unborn self. There's nothing wrong. It's only half of the truth. So we have to find in ourselves unborn self. But it doesn't mean that we have to disappear and to be no more. It's not the purpose of this creation. The purpose is to be many. Veda doesn't speak to disappear, nowhere. To become many, to become true, to grow into his awareness, to become supreme individual. It's more like Ramanuja's, Vishishta Advaita rather than Advaita of Shankara, if you will. So Ramanuja's, that the soul maintains its uniqueness in connection with the divine. Yes, Ashish.
Sorry, I was curious. So, I mean, so they described the one to the many and the creation. Do they also talk about what will happen going
Yes.
forward? So, okay.
Yes, they were the powers which were doing this, Vedic rishis. We did this not once, we did this many times. There were many manvantaras, many yugas, many kalpas. It's not first time we meet here with this attempt again to build this awareness, again to build this unique, separate individual with supreme qualities. Again and again we will be doing it until it is done. Because it is his will. It is the one who is willed it, and we will be doing it until it is done. There was Kirit Joshi, maybe some of you met him before. He was our chancellor and um, and my mentor, and he was the president of ICPI, Indian Council of Philosophical Research. And he was telling us the story for children, actually. Can you imagine, he said, that we as souls signed the contract with the divine that we will go down into this darkness and create for him a suitable place to live, a body, a house for the divine. Every one of us will become a house of the divine. But when we signed the contract, there was one condition, that the moment we signed the contract, we will forget about it. So when we plunged into the darkness, we forgot what we are here for. But until it is done, he says, we will never rest. We will never be satisfied. Nothing can satisfy but its delight, as Sri Aurobindo says, until it is totally done, the conversion of the darkness into light within this individual frame. So this is the purpose.
Uh, can you just briefly tell me, like the construct of time? Like, what is time's role in all this?
Time, yes. Time is doing this evolution. It is spread. What is time, according to you? Do you have any definition of time? What is the
The
time,
late.
actually? It's very, very late for you, yes, on Philippines. Yes, Shish. What
I've
is it?
lost all my sleep. So, okay.
So yeah, as a layman person, as so suppose Philippines, it must be late. For me, it's evening, and for you, it must be morning. So yeah, from point A to point B, from counting today as Monday to tomorrow as Tuesday.
Yeah, what is it?
As a
Oh, okay,
I,
let us take shorter time. Yeah, I will tell you one story about this short story about Uspensky. There was such an occultist, and he looked into the mirror when he was old and took his photo of his when he was a child, and then said, "Is it really the same being? The child on the photo looks very different from that in the mirror. What has happened between the child and this old being? What has happened?" That is time. It's in the Veda they call this yugas, yugani, vitanvate pratibhadraya bhadram. They spread the yugas, the yokes in time of some particular being. Some particular being comes, and then in time, because time is what? It's a constant movement. It's a power. Sri Aurobindo says time is Shakti, which is constantly moving the worlds. Nothing stays here static. There is no static thing in the world. Everything is moving constantly. Look at our planet. We are constantly rotating around itself, around the sun. Sun rotates around the galaxy with a huge speed, 1 million kilometers per hour. We are flying 1 million kilometers per hour. with our sun around the galaxy, and galaxy expands somewhere we cannot even calculate all this speed. What is speed? It is that factor of time, yes, of constant interaction and change, which through that Shakti these new qualities will be acquired and evolution takes place. Otherwise, how he could evolve without time? How could he become many supremes if time would not work? It is impossible. It can be done only in time by his Shakti. It's amazing if you think. This, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying is then time is a name of this physical measurement of the yoga, of the yogas, and this power of movement of um, the
It,
progression
it's also
happening.
physical, yes. There is geological time, there is psychological time, there is historical time. There are many times, many different measurements of time. Sometimes psychologically only 5 minutes went and you think it was many hours. Sometimes you stay several days and you think it was like 5 minutes. So it's all very relative. It's a power. Time is power, which it's Shakti, it's the Divine Mother, which moves the worlds and creates and manifests the divine here. Mm. Yeah, it's a very interesting discussion on time, but maybe time-wise, um, maybe we will continue about time uh, next time. Mm.
I had a little
Well,
doubt, but I will take it later.
Yeah, tell me. Okay, if a little doubt, it can be addressed.
So so I was, this was coming to me. So when divine gave birth to truth, light, and everything, then truth forgot the connect with the divine, and it became falsehood.
Yes,
So now there is falsehood, but then to get back to truth, one has to connect to the divine, but not to truth as a force. If I know if I'm making sense.
absolutely. With the divine. Very nice. Very great thing. And you notice that falsehood is never claiming to be falsehood in the world. It always claims to be truth. Yeah? So everybody
Mm.
who lies, he lies because he speaks the truth, as it were, knowingly or unknowingly.
Yeah, so then the truth, all these entities, because they have lost themselves, so only divine exists. So
Yeah,
getting back to divine is the core, right?
absolutely. They have to become aware of their divine origin, and then it will be a very different being. Then there will be no suffering anymore, no falsehood, no darkness. In that sense, darkness of consciousness as in conscience. Okay,
Lavina, one line I want to please, because it's very important to ask. Very short. So it is about, that that we are aspiring to merge into God. This whole thing that is taught and all of that. But maybe it is because unless we visit and feel and witness it outside, we may not be inspired to, or we may not know what is it inside that we have to meet, because it is so below the dark rock that it is very. Maybe we have to, like, like when you see the mirror, then you say, oh my god, I have to put oil, cream, whatever. So maybe it is because I want to understand why everybody is being asked to look up and aspire for God, and want to merge in God and all. There has to be something more. It can't be just a religious thing, right?
you can find the divine above and divine below and divine within. It is everywhere. We are like in the bubble within the divine. Wherever you go deep enough, you will find him as a luminous life. He's everywhere. Yeah? So it's an amazing thing to think. We will come to the Vedic devatas and we will see that Rudra represents that fire, Agni from within. Vishnu will represent that sun from above, and Brahmanaspati or Brihaspati, that from within, yes, from the heart, the luminous presence of the divine from the heart. These are the devatas which will be doing the work, and they have many other godheads with them which are helping them to do the work. Okay, I will stop here. and see you then next time. There will be a recording of the session, and I will leave also the PowerPoint. Actually, it's all in the text, the same quotations. You can check with the text. All right, so Om Shanti 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 Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namaste.